I was left behind. No messages, no calls, no one standing by my side. Only one cold sentence from my mother: if you don't behave, you're no longer my child. I was 17, and from that moment, I officially had no family. In today's video, you'll hear the true story of a girl rejected by her own relatives simply because she refused to conform to the toxic tradition standards, from a child raised under absolute control to a woman brave enough to expose the truths her entire community tried to hide. This is a journey of pain, betrayal, and rebirth. Chapter 1. I starved myself so I wouldn't be forced to marry. The moment I realized my blood was worth more than my life was the moment I stopped eating. I grew up in a family where menstruation wasn't a biological milestone. It was a marriage sentence. 12, 13. Didn't matter. Once a drop of blood showed up, you were eligible to be handed off to a man 3 times your age who had already buried 2 wives. Sounds horrific. Yeah. But to me as a child, it felt normal, because I didn't know anything outside of tradition. And in my family, tradition meant this girls were inventory. They had to be packaged nicely and delivered on time. I heard it all the time: a girl must marry to fulfill her duty. And I believed it until I turned 11. That was the year I saw my cousin Mayam, 3 days into her first period, promised to a 43-year-old man. They called him a successful businessman. I just remembered both his previous wives had died before turning 20. They said it was kidney failure, but the women in my family whispered, probably from too many pregnancies. Her uterus just gave out. I didn't even know what a period really was yet. But that night, I understood one thing: blood would destroy me. And I made a decision I wouldn't let it come. I started starving myself. Not because I hated my body, not because I wanted to be skinny like Instagram models. I just knew this girls who are thinner tend to hit puberty later, so being thin was my only weapon. I skipped breakfast every day, pretended to eat dinner, then spit it into napkins when no one was looking. I learned how to sniff food to feel psychologically full. My cousins called me the walking skeleton. I didn't care, because I knew every day I could delay my period was one more day I could avoid being handed over to some yellow-toothed man with a beer belly. But even without blood, I was still trained to be a good wife. Every Friday from 1 a.m. to 10 a.m. Yes, you read that right. I had to serve food to the gentleman of the family. Absolute silence. No eye contact. No clattering spoons. If I so much as breathed too loudly, it was 10 lashes. With a belt. On my bare back. My hands, trained by carrying pots of boiling water with no gloves. Soft hands won't survive the kitchen, my mother would say, while applying whitening cream to my face at night like I was some half-finished beauty project. I didn't fight. Didn't cry. I knew that performing well might save me. So I smiled and said I want to be a mother soon. I love cooking. I want to be like Aunt Amina, 9 kids, and still beautiful. They clapped. Proud. They didn't know I kept a diary beneath an empty tampon box. At 14, I still hadn't had my period. I thought I had won, thought I had broken my fate. Then one day I wore a t-shirt to school, and a teacher named Ms. Rodriguez called me into her office. "Why are you this skinny?" I said nothing. She stepped out to use the bathroom and forgot to lock her desk drawer. Inside, a book titled Marriage Laws in the United States. A flyer, Your Rights as a Minor. A sentence printed in bold red: when culture becomes a crime. I remember being unable to breathe for 30 seconds. I grabbed the thinnest flyer, tucked it into my waistband, the first thing I ever stole, and felt no guilt. That night, I read it under my blanket with my phone flashlight, and my world crumbled, then opened. Marriage under 18 is illegal. No cultural exceptions. No parental consent allowed. There's nothing legal about forcing children to marry. I didn't sleep. I memorized every page. Shelter addresses, CPS hotline numbers, how to speak to a mandated reporter without giving myself away. I had lived my whole life inside a golden glass cage, and it turned out it was just a gilded prison. I started teaching the younger girls in my family. Inside my uncle's old tool shed, we called it Wife Skills Group. Sounded like a homemaking class, but really it was survival training. We practiced whispering, "I'm 13. They're trying to marry me off. Please help. They'll beat me if I refuse. Please don't tell them I spoke up." I thought if I could help just one of them escape, I would have done what my mother never had the courage to do. But I didn't know. The real battle would begin the day my blood finally came. Chapter 2. The blood came and hell broke loose. I was 15 when my body betrayed me. That morning, like every other Friday, I was serving breakfast to the male relatives amid booming laughter and spoons clanking on steel plates. My hands trembled, arms sore from carrying a pot of hot porridge, wrapped only in a wet rag, eyes down, legs shaking, exhaustion blurring my vision. Then I felt it, a warm trickle sliding down my thigh, a flicker of hope. Maybe it's just water. Maybe it's nothing. I glanced down. My white skirt was stained with bright red blood. Not from a cut. Not from a belt. Not from punishment. My first blood. My first period. My first death sentence. I froze in the middle of the room tray, still in hand. Then, like a scene from the worst horror film ever made, my mother screamed as if she'd won the lottery. "Oh my God, finally, alhamdulillah." She dropped the ladle in her hand and rushed toward me, hugging me from behind her hands, wet with my blood tears of joy pouring down her face. Within minutes, the house was full of women cheering, like I had just gotten into Harvard. One aunt blurted, "She's so lucky her husband will be rich for sure." My mother kissed my forehead for the first time in years. I wanted to scream, to vomit, to die right then and there. By that evening, they had picked my groom. Not a stranger. Hamoud Habibi, 52, wealthy, stylish, and had coincidentally lost 2 wives before they turned 24, both to kidney failure. So they said. The women in the house whispered otherwise. Too many pregnancies too young. Emergency surgeries twice. The third time she didn't survive. And now he wanted me. A girl who hadn't been bleeding for even 12 hours. They forced me to sit while they dressed me in a red ceremonial outfit, red for blood, red for tradition, red for hell. They made me pose with a sign that said, "Bride to be." In the photo, I smiled, but my eyes didn't. But worse than that, Anna, the girl I had trained from the beginning, had her first period that same week. She was promised to a 51-year-old man with 8 kids older than her. A man who collected young wives like a sick hobbyist collecting living dolls. When they discussed her dowry, I saw the light leave Anna's eyes. She didn't cry, didn't protest. She just emptied out inside. That night I slipped her my notebook, a duplicate I had prepared. Shelter addresses, legal rights, trigger phrases for mandatory reporters, an escape plan. I whispered, "Tomorrow. Tell the science teacher, say it exactly as I taught you. I'm 13. They're making me get married. Please help me." Anna's hands trembled as she took it. "But what about you?" I gave a twisted smile. "My wedding's in 2 weeks. I'll figure something out." I was wrong. That very night there was a knock on the door. CPS. They had received a report. A child was crying for help, just like I'd trained her to. My family pretended to be shocked, but I saw my father's eyes, from surprise to rage to murder. They began searching the house, not for intruders, but for a traitor. They tore through the tool shed, and within the hour they found my original notebook. Everything was there, hotline numbers, shelter addresses, the name of the safe teacher, trigger phrases to activate reporting. My father held the notebook and ripped it in half in front of the entire family, like a priest burning a cursed relic. "This snake," he roared, "this sickness, this tumor that must be cut from our bloodline." My mother didn't stop him. She just knelt beside me, rubbing skin, whitening cream onto my face like it was our final ritual, murmuring, "May Allah forgive you. Forgive her, for she is no longer my daughter." Then my father announced, The wedding is tomorrow morning, before this disease infects anyone else. I didn't cry. I just heard my heart beating like a funeral drum, and I knew if I didn't run tonight, by morning I'd be wife number 3 buried before I ever turned 20, or I ever... Chapter 3: The Window Escape and the Night of Blood and Flight. That night, I wasn't running from a house, I was running from a death sentence wrapped in a red wedding dress and fake blessings. I had prepared for this night. Not for a week. Not for a month. For 3 years. When my father announced the wedding would happen the next morning, a mental map snapped into place. I knew exactly. The small bag hidden in the bathroom ceiling. The window in that bathroom, once painted shut, slowly loosened with a butter knife. The fastest route to the bus station, 4 stops, and above all, only one chance. 3:45 a.m., I groaned, clutching my stomach part, pain part performance. My mother walked in, glaring at me like I had ruined her glorious day. "Get up! The makeup artist will be here in 30 minutes!" I cried out louder. "Mom, it hurts! So bad!" She frowned. "You already went to the toilet. Don't start playing games." I threw up. Maybe it was the food. "Please, Mom." I saw a flicker of fear in her eyes. In our culture, a sick bride was a very bad omen. She exhaled sharply. 5 minutes, then come out. Don't embarrass me. I entered the bathroom, locked the door, stepped onto the toilet, reached into the ceiling where I had loosened a slab of plaster over the years. Inside the cavity, a change of clothes, a handwritten note with the shelter's address, a small flyer with reporting keywords, $20 in crumpled bills I had stolen $1 at a time from my mom's purse. I set the bag down, took a deep breath, looked at the tiny window painted white since preschool. My butter knife was still behind the jar of whitening cream. I began to chip. Bit by bit, the paint cracked. Flakes fell to the tiles. Outside, my mom knocked loudly. "Are you done yet? What kind of girl takes this long to poop? I'm sick." I shouted back, voice trembling. "I'm bleeding. I have diarrhea." Silence. Then the window gave way. A sliver of moonlight. Small, but I was thin. I tossed the bag out first, climbed onto the sink, slid my body toward the frame. Crack aloud. Thud. My father's voice roared from the hallway. "Break down the door. She's up to something." My shoulder scraped. My hip caught on the edge. My father slammed the door like a beast. "You little bitch! How dare you!" I clenched my jaw, pushed. Snap! The wood cracked. My legs slipped through just as the frame buckled. I fell nearly 2 meters, landed in dew-soaked grass, twisted my right ankle. Not broken. No time to feel pain. I grabbed the bag, ran. I bolted past the fence. Through the Hassan family's hedges. Dogs barked. Lights flicked on. I didn't stop. I knew this neighborhood. Knew which houses would report me. Which ones had cameras. I ran past Mahmoud's koi pond, around the public toilet block near the soccer field, to the bus stop. Behind me, an engine revved. She's heading east. Follow her. I ducked behind Abdullah's garbage bins as headlights swept past. Cousin Omar shouted, "Search every corner. She can't be far." My foot bled. A shard of glass embedded deep in my heel. I didn't dare pull it out. Didn't stop. Couldn't stop. I saw the city bus parked at the stop, 40 meters away. Get on or die. I ran, hair tangled, dress torn, legs slick with blood. The driver, a middle-aged black woman, looked at me for 1 second, then opened the door. I stepped onto the bus, hands shaking, and remembered I had no money. "Please," I whispered. "I'll pay later. I just need to go. Please." An old woman in the front seat stood up, dropped $2 into the machine, looked at me gently. "Sit down, child." I sat. And for the first time I cried, real, uncontrollable sobs. Outside, Omar's car screeched into the lot. Too late. I ducked my head. The old woman leaned slightly to block me from sight. The bus pulled away. I escaped. Not completely, not safely, but I was free. Chapter 4: The Protection Order and the Awakening of a Lifetime. I didn't walk into that courthouse to win back my freedom. I walked in to reclaim the right to be human. The city bus jolted through every bend in the road. I was nearly immobile, my leg throbbing my dress, torn, the smell of sweat and blood rising around me. But my hand held tightly to the handwritten note. Family Court, downtown office. Something I once wrote like a faraway dream. Now it was the only destination I had left. At the final stop, the kind elderly woman pressed a $10 bill into my palm and whispered, "Don't look back. People who truly love you don't make you run." I stepped off. The courthouse loomed before me like a fortress, but I didn't feel small. I felt like a survivor. 8:03 a.m. I stepped through the main doors, leaving a faint trail of blood across the marble floor. The security guard gave me a strange look, but didn't stop me. Maybe they'd seen too much. Or maybe they'd never seen anyone like me. I made my way to the reception desk. "I need an emergency protection order," I whispered, barely staying on my feet. "I'm 15. They were going to marry me off this morning. Please." The middle-aged woman behind the desk shot up instantly. No questions, no delay. She simply said, "Sit down, sweetie, I'll get the forms." Within 10 minutes, I was led to a small hearing room where a judge scanned through the hastily written petition I'd scribbled with trembling hands. Parents forcing a marriage. The man is 52. His 2 previous wives are dead. I escaped. They're looking for me. He looked at me over his glasses and said just one thing. "Granted, I'm signing. Effective immediately. Full protection order." I held that paper like a sacred talisman, a document that proved I wasn't crazy. I wasn't ungrateful. I was simply fighting for the life I deserved. But then came the next blow. "We don't have any room at the shelters," the intake coordinator said. "We can place you on a wait list for Thursday." Thursday. It was Monday. I had no home, nowhere to go, no friends I could call, they'd be punished too. No school, my family might have already staked it out. And then I remembered the only woman who ever left her desk drawer open in front of me. Ms. Rodriguez. I took 3 buses and walked nearly 2 hours to Jefferson High, where she taught. I prayed she'd be there on a weekend like usual. When I arrived, her car was parked in the lot. Relief nearly buckled my knees. She was grading papers alone in her classroom. I opened the door, and when she looked up, her red pen fell from her hand. Oh my God! She rushed around the desk and embraced me, taking in my appearance, bleeding feet, vacant eyes, torn clothes, a court order gripped tightly in one shaking hand. "Sit down. Don't move," she said. "We're going to take care of this." She fetched the first aid kit from the nurse's office, washed my feet, removed shards of glass, wrapped every toe with care, and I cried this time truly. They tried to marry me off to a man who killed his last 2 wives. I ran, but the shelters are full. I don't know where to go. She squeezed my hand and reached for her phone. "I'm calling CPS right now. We'll get you temporary protection." But the voice on the other end was ice cold. "She's 15, no physical abuse. We'll need documented proof." I looked at her. I understood. They needed evidence. Not blood, not fear, not desperate pleas. They needed scars. Slowly, I rolled up my sleeve, showed her the circular burn scar from carrying a boiling pot barehanded. Then I turned around, lifted my dress, revealing the thick belt marks down my back, like a roadmap of pain. She gasped, "Why didn't you tell anyone sooner?" "Because I thought it was normal." She took photos, her hands trembling. Then she called 911 again. "I have a student who's been severely abused. She's being hunted. She has a court order. Someone is trying to take her." Right then, a knock rattled the door. Knock, knock. "We know she's in there." My father's voice, smooth, ice cold. "My daughter is ill. She needs medication. Please, Miss Teacher." Ms. Rodriguez locked the door, pulled the blinds, turned to me. "Don't be afraid. The police are on their way." I peeked through the blinds. They stood there in suits, prescription slips with my name already printed. Outside, they looked like a perfect family. But I knew better. Behind those suits were knives, traps, a prison. The police arrived in 4 minutes. My father's face turned from worried to scornful. "She's mentally unstable," he said. "She thinks we're trying to kill her." One officer stayed with us. Another took my father and uncles outside for questioning. I said just one thing. If I'm so sick, why haven't I seen a doctor in 15 years? Why is there no prescription history? Ms. Rodriguez brought out. The essay I once submitted. Sections about family traditions, about preparing to be a wife, about staying silent when serving men. The officers read in silence. They didn't say much, but I saw their expressions shift. Then a school security guard walked in with surveillance footage. It showed my father and uncles arriving earlier prescription slips already in hand, even before they discovered I was sick. There was no denying it. My father's face turned pale as the tape played. Dowry, he muttered in Arabic. Did you just say dowry? The officer asked. No, I misspoke. My English isn't great. Your English sounded perfect 5 minutes ago. By the end of the day, CPS issued an emergency protection order. My family was banned from contacting me. My father screamed in our native tongue, "You're no longer my daughter." My mother silent. No tears, no words, not even a glance. I stepped into the CPS car beside Ms. Rodriguez, who still held my hand. I don't have a family anymore, I whispered. She looked at me unwavering. No, you just found one. Chapter 5, The Price of Freedom and the Endless Chase. I thought escaping my family was the victory, but I was wrong. They don't need to catch me if they can destroy me from afar. The first night after leaving the courthouse, I was taken to an emergency shelter. The coordinator was a woman named Margaret, about 50 years old, with deep-set but sharp eyes, like someone who had seen hundreds of kids like me walk in, and not all of them walked out. She took me to a small house on the outskirts, the home of Theodora, a retired nurse, 60 years old, experienced in caring for girls hunted by their families over honor. When she opened the door, I saw security cameras in all four corners, thick wooden locks on the doors, and motion sensor lights in the front yard. I thought, this place looks like a prison. But then I realized, if a place can be locked from the inside, it's not a prison, it's a fortress. Theodora looked at me with a gaze that wasn't judgmental, not pitying, just the look of someone who had seen the fire in the eyes of burned-out girls and was trying to rekindle it in me. Come in, child. We start from here. I was taken to a small, clean bedroom with an inside lock and a window with a vibration sensor, a single wooden bed, light blue sheets. On the desk, a reading lamp, and a note. If you wake up at 3 a.m., call me. I won't ask anything, I'll just sit beside you. I didn't call Theodora at 3 a.m. because I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, clutching my emergency protection order like a talisman eyes watching the street. Every time a car's headlights swept by, my heart jumped. Every noise could be my father or an uncle or anyone they hired. The next morning, Theodora took me to buy a new SIM card, change my phone, create a new email, and encrypt my schedule. They will find you, not out of love, but out of honor, because your existence is a threat. Those words cut deeper than any scolding my father ever gave. On Monday, we called the shelter again. Still no space. On Tuesday, lawyer Margaret reported your family has hired a private lawyer. They filed a countersuit brainwashing by outsiders separated from culture. They are planning to sue you to regain custody. No, they are the real persecutors. We will fight. On Wednesday, Theodora received flowers at the house. A huge bouquet, no sender's name, just a card. Please come home. You are your mother's honor. My mother. Still acting the tragic role of the abandoned mother, Theodora immediately took photos and documented the evidence. They want you to feel guilty, to feel weak, but remember, love is not coercion. On Thursday, I started at a new school, with a confidential file, a coded name, known only to the counselor and principal who understood my situation. People were kind, but I knew safety was temporary, and I was right. The following Friday, leaving school, I saw a familiar truck parked a distance away. Not my father's, he was too smart, but it was my uncle's pickup, with the family company's logo on the door. I didn't go home. I returned to the counselor's office and called Theodora. She drove up, parked right in front of my uncle's truck, and turned on her camera, pointing straight at him. Let him know. We see everything. We are not afraid. On Saturday, a package arrived. Inside were photos of my little sister at her birthday party, my chair empty, photos of my mother cooking my favorite dish, her face soaked with tears. I almost believed it until the last photo, Anna, standing next to my parents, wearing a ring on her finger, dressed in red Audi, eyes hollow. On the back of the photo, she has returned. Very happy. You can be too. I felt nauseous. They had captured Anna and forced her to play the role of the happy bride like a performance. I held the photo, trembling uncontrollably. They want to teach me, even if I escaped. Those I love remain imprisoned. And that was exactly how it was. Chapter 6. The Media War. When they turned me into a cultural traitor, they didn't need to handcuff me. All they had to do was make the whole community believe I was a disgrace who smeared tradition. I thought I was used to being hunted, but I never imagined I would be hunted. Online. Monday, 6:08 a.m. Theodora woke me up early. Her face was tense. In her hand was an open laptop. On the screen was a Facebook post from my father. My old school ID photo, pale face, swollen eyes from sleep deprivation. The bolded caption read, "Our daughter has been manipulated by outsiders. She is mentally ill and needs help. If anyone sees her, please contact the family. We just want to get her treatment. Please help us bring her home." Hundreds of comments flooded in. Family friends, neighbors, even the aunties who used to teach me how to recite the Quran. So heartbreaking. Praying she comes to her senses. These white Americans always destroying families. Poor mother, losing her daughter and now being blamed for it. Theodora spoke curtly. They're controlling the narrative, turning you into a rebellious, insane girl, and the whole community is on their side. I laughed bitterly. I was supposed to be a doctor. Now I'm a cultural traitor in need of therapy. That afternoon, I got a call from attorney Patricia. Some extended family members have filed a civil lawsuit, accusing you of defaming the culture, slandering the family, and damaging the religious image. I laughed again, this time out loud. They tried to force me to marry a 52-year-old man whose previous wives mysteriously died. But I'm the one corrupting morality. Patricia nodded solemnly. It's a classic tactic. If they can't win legally, they'll destroy your reputation. But I wasn't ready for what came next. The first video. Filmed by Margie, the little girl from the wife skills class I used to teach. She sat next to her mother, reading lines like a lifeless puppet. She told us our parents were going to sell us. She scared us into running away, saying we'd die if we didn't. She made us hate our culture, our family. Her eyes were empty. I knew that look. I'd seen it in my own reflection for far too long. Theodora turned off the screen. I shook, burying my head in my hands. I just wanted to save them. I never forced anyone. She hugged me gently. And that's why they turned on you. They've been forced to betray you because you're living proof of what their families refuse to admit. The next day, Patricia came with a report from the security guard watching Theodora's home. The camera had recorded 3 men taking photos from across the street. I recognized them. My cousin and 2 of the potential grooms I had once been introduced to in the family. Margaret from CPS called an emergency meeting. We need to consider relocating her. The family knows where the safe house is. But Theodora shook her head. If we run, we're admitting they have the right to chase her. I spoke up. I'm not running anymore. I want to fight here now. 2 days later, social media exploded again. A new video, Margie this time not alone. 4 more girls sat beside her. Girls I recognized. Every face, every look. Ones I had taught, comforted, protected. I had shown them how to call CPS, how to describe abuse, how to pretend to go to the bathroom and run. Now they were saying I had brainwashed them. She told me if I didn't leave home, I'd be beaten to death. She told me to lie to my teacher. She told me the men in my house were monsters. Theodora didn't speak. Patricia didn't either. Only me sitting there, hands trembling as if holding a bloody blade. And in my chest, this thought, is this the price of freedom? Patricia placed a hand on my shoulder. We fight with the truth. The truth is, these girls are being held emotionally hostage. They're being freed only when they renounce you. I lifted my head. Then I'll do the opposite. I'll speak the truth. Publicly. That night, I called Ms. Rodriguez the teacher who had kept all my old essays. Inside them, I had buried truth, like bombs waiting to detonate. Cooking for extended family. Standing for 9 hours, forced to serve, forbidden to speak. Learning to be a wife. Getting whipped for making eye contact with a man. Honoring my ancestors. Bleeding and terrified the day I got my first period. Knowing marriage was coming. Ms. Rodriguez brought me to a human rights journalist. No cameras, no real names, just my story raw, bloodied, and scarred, told from the beginning, nothing left out. I don't need their pity. I need them to know this is happening in America in 2025 in broad daylight. Chapter 7. The First Knock. And the moment I became. The example. When you tell the truth in public, you stop being invisible, but that also means every desperate soul will find you or seen, and you can't pretend you didn't hear them. The human rights interview went live on a Friday night. No names, no photos, just my voice, steady but shaking deep down, telling exactly what happened to me. By Saturday morning, my inbox was burning. Some messages were kind, "You're so brave." Some were vicious, "You're a disgrace to your blood," but buried in between the noise was one that made me freeze. It was from a girl named Samira, 14 years old. Her profile photo was just a flower emoji. "I saw your story. My uncle's taking me to Morocco next week. They say I'll visit family. But I heard them talking about a wedding. Please. I can't call anyone. My mom says if I refuse, she'll throw me out. I don't know what to do." I stared at the message for a full minute, my hand gripping the phone so hard it hurt. I wasn't ready. I was still sleeping with the lights on, still checking the locks 3 times before bed, still hearing my father's voice in my head. But this girl, she was me just 2 years earlier, and I knew exactly what would happen if I ignored her. I called Theodora first. She didn't hesitate. "Tell her not to pack anything. Don't let them know she's afraid. We'll come tonight. Then Patricia, my lawyer, will need proof of intent to marry her off. Text messages, conversations, anything." By 9 p.m., Samira had sent me a shaky voice memo recorded in the bathroom while someone pounded on the door outside. He says the man is a good friend of the family. He's 42. He has 2 wives already. They told me, "I'll be number 3. Her voice cracked. "I don't want to die like they did." At 1:17 a.m., we were parked 3 houses down from hers. Lights were still on. Luggage sat by the door. I texted her, "Go to the back. Now." She slipped out barefoot, clutching nothing but a school backpack. Her breathing was ragged. When she saw me, she stopped for half a second, like she was checking if I was real, then ran straight into my arms. We didn't speak. We just moved. 30 minutes later, we were at a temporary safe house. Theodora locked the doors and installed a new SIM card in her phone. Samira sat on the couch, knees pulled to her chest, eyes darting to every shadow. I knelt in front of her. "You're safe now. No one can touch you here." She whispered, "Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." I swallowed the lump in my throat, because once I was waiting for someone like me, and no one came. The next morning, CPS opened an emergency case for her. Her uncle showed up at the police station claiming she was mentally unstable. It didn't work. We had the voice memos, the dates, the recorded conversation. When Samira was placed with a vetted foster family, she hugged me for so long, I thought my ribs would break. Before she left, she said, I didn't know there was a way out. Until you. That night, I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. I wasn't just the runaway daughter anymore. I wasn't just the shame of the family. I had become something else. Something I didn't even know I could be an example. A warning to families like mine, and a lifeline for girls like Samira. I thought maybe she would be the last. But 2 days later, a message arrived from someone named Noura, and that's when I learned Samira was only the beginning. Chapter 8, The Girl They Tried to Export and the Rescue at the Chaotic Bus Station. I used to think the worst thing was being forced to marry, but after realizing they could export a girl like she was a package, I knew this was never just a family issue. Samira wasn't the last case. Less than 48 hours after we rescued her, I received another message, this time from a girl named Noura, 16 years old, Middle Eastern background. Her family planned to remove her from the US to avoid corrupt Western influence. Sounds familiar, right? Except this time, the flight was scheduled the next morning, and she had no phone confiscated. Her passport had been renamed. Her SIM card gone. All she had was an old tablet hidden under her bed, barely clinging to the neighbor's Wi-Fi. Her message was short, desperate. Hi, I'm a friend of Samira's. I don't know if you'll even see this, but if I don't do something today, I won't get to be me anymore. I immediately sent a red alert. Her flight was at 8:30 a.m. She was being held in a hotel just 10 minutes from the airport. We couldn't call the police, not enough evidence. Calling CPS without solid grounds could make them solve the problem faster than we could intervene. There was only one option. Find her. Get her out. Before her parents realized she was gone. 03:00 a.m. I arrived with Patricia and a volunteer from a nonprofit org. We drove quietly to the hotel. We disguised ourselves as housekeeping staff using an internal key card from a contact who worked in that hotel chain. 03:42 a.m. We approached room 407, the last ping from the tablet. Patricia knocked 3 times. Soft, just as planned. After 15 seconds, the door creaked open. A girl wrapped in a towel, hands trembling, eyes swollen. Are you the one from the messages? I put a finger to my lips. Noura. We don't have much time. Do you trust me? She nodded. No luggage, no clothes, only freedom folded into an old tablet and the courage of a 30-second window. We took her out through the emergency stairs. No elevators, no cameras. Our car waited in the underground lot. 3 minutes later, we were gone. 08:15 a.m. I sat in front of a TV at the safe house. News report flashed on screen. A Middle Eastern family alleges their underage daughter was abducted from a hotel. Police are investigating, but there are suspicions this may be an orchestrated escape before a planned overseas relocation. I knew what was coming. Noura's family would go ballistic. Media would split into 2 sides. And me, I'd be called all the usual names again: homewrecker, cultural traitor, Western whore. But I didn't care anymore. That night, Noura was granted emergency shelter status as a protected witness. She was placed with a vetted foster family. Before she left, she hugged me tightly and said, if you hadn't answered, I'd be married by now. To a man I've never looked in the eye. I smiled. And now, who will you become? Anyone I want to be. The following week, I created a new encrypted group on Signal accessible only to insiders. We called it the Daughters Circle, a circle of girls who had once been discarded. Every girl we rescued was encouraged to one day help at least one other. No need to be a hero. Just answer the phone when a girl calls at 3 a.m. And soon, I started getting messages like these. I'm a friend of Noura's. My friend's being sent to Sudan next week. My mom wants to marry me off quick, now that she found out about my boyfriend. One by one, night by night, we stopped a marriage, prevented a departure, disrupted a vow built on lies. My family may want me to disappear, but every girl we save is living proof that I still exist. I'm not some runaway daughter. I'm the one stealing back existence for those never allowed to choose it. Chapter 9, The Silent Verdict. When my family tried to sue me for honor, I used to think that once you escaped it was over, but I didn't know. My family had learned how to use the law like a whip, and I was their first target. The first court summons arrived on a quiet April morning. A yellow envelope sealed tightly left at the front door of the support center where I worked. On it, printed in bold block letters, defendant, my full name, charges, damaging family honor, defaming tradition, inciting minors to run away. I laughed, not because I felt relieved, but because this confirmed one thing: they couldn't kill me. They couldn't drag me back. So now they wanted to bury me in shame. My lawyer was Sophia, petite woman, gray hair, glasses, but eyes sharp like lasers. She looked straight at me across the conference table and said bluntly, "They know they'll lose, but winning isn't the point. The point is to drain you of energy, money, and your image in the very community you came from." I swallowed hard. I had prepared myself for many things, but not for being legally sued in the name of honor. The first hearing was set 2 months later. My whole family showed up. My mother, aunts, uncles, and even a so-called religious scholar. They didn't look at me, not even a glance. But the media, they zoomed in like I was a serial killer on trial. Their attorney started with polished rhetoric. This is not about personal freedom. It's about the preservation of a cultural legacy under attack. She didn't just leave, she encouraged dozens of young girls to rebel, to betray their families. Sophia stood up, calm, measured, and simply said, "We are not putting a religion on trial. We are examining one fact. A woman dared to rescue children on the verge of being illegally married off and smuggled out of the country without consent, without choice." The courtroom went silent. No one had a rebuttal. But I knew they didn't need to win with logic. They only needed to win with noise. The next day, headlines lit up. Controversial woman of nationality, sued by family for rescuing minors. Hero or homewrecker, the trial dividing a community. Tradition on trial, can honor, survive freedom. The center I worked at was defaced with red graffiti. "Traitor, we won't shelter those who defy their ancestors." The front glass was shattered, my emails flooded with hate, my bank account temporarily frozen due to suspicious activity reports. I nearly collapsed. I remembered what Ms. Rodriguez once told me. They don't need to kill a woman with blood. They just have to smear her name long enough until everything she says sounds like a lie. I locked myself in the courthouse restroom, phone vibrating nonstop. I turned it off. I couldn't do this anymore. I seriously considered backing out until a message popped up through Signal from an unknown number. "You don't know me, but I'm one of the girls you saved through someone else's story. If you give up, I don't know who'll step up next. But if you walk out of that courtroom with your back straight, I'll know one person can beat the system as long as they don't bow to it." I wiped my tears, turned my phone back on, called Sophia. "We're not just defending, we're countersuing for defamation, libel, and inciting public hatred." Sophia smiled like she'd been waiting for that exact sentence. 1 month later, I officially filed a lawsuit against my own family. No longer the shameful daughter, no longer the whistleblower being hunted. I became the plaintiff and took back the right to define myself. The lesson in this trial: sometimes families don't want you dead. They just want you to live exactly as they say. And if you refuse, they'll rewrite your entire story as a traitor. But me, I don't accept rewrites. I'll hold the pen and write it all over again. Chapter 10. A Letter to the Next Child. And the Manifesto of the Rejected. You may be the one who was left behind, branded as a disgrace, labeled a traitor, the bad child. But I'm here to tell you, you are not alone, and you have the right to live a life that doesn't require anyone's permission. I've spent the last 6 years saving girls I've never even met. Every message, every 3 a.m. phone call, every tear-streaked face sitting quietly in the back of a taxi. They've all become part of something we now call the Daughters Circle. A circle of those who were once unwanted, silenced, or cast out. We started as just three, me, Patricia, and Samira. Now we're 148 strong, from 17 ethnic communities. We speak 11 different languages, but we share one pain: I wasn't chosen. And so I want to end this story not with revenge, not with triumph, but with a letter to you, the one who might be watching this through tears, or simply scrolling to convince yourself you're not crazy. To the next child, I don't know your name. I don't know where you are. Maybe you're sleeping inside a closet, fan turned on to drown out your cries. Maybe you're secretly typing on a cracked phone at 2 a.m., hiding in a bathroom, wishing to disappear. Maybe you're being threatened. Maybe they're forcing you into marriage. Maybe you've been called the disgrace of the family. But here's what I need you to know. I believe you. I believe you're telling the truth. And I'm here. You don't have to burn every bridge just to be yourself. But if you need to, let me be the first to tell you. You have the right. You have the right to refuse a marriage that doesn't involve love, to reject a family that only loves you when you please them, to walk away from a community that makes you choose between your freedom and their idea of tradition. If you're not ready to leave yet, that's okay. Just don't forget, you deserve a choice. You are not a traitor. You are a survivor. You are an original in a world that only wants copies. I may never know what path you choose, but if you ever need someone, I'll be that 3:07 a.m. call you didn't think anyone would answer. And if you've ever whispered, "Is there anyone out there like me?" then this is your answer. Yes. And we've built an entire family out of the broken pieces of names that were once erased, the manifesto of the rejected. We are not victims. We are survivors. We are the voices our parents swore no one would listen to. And if they call us traitors, let them remember it's the silent ones who allow evil to grow. I don't know whose hands this video will end up in. Maybe you'll forget it in a few minutes. Maybe you'll save it and watch it again when it matters most. But if one day you find yourself at a crossroads, stay and be bent, or leave and be disowned. I hope you remember sometimes walking away isn't betrayal. It's the beginning. If you've ever been abandoned by your family, if you've ever been called a shame, a traitor, or not good enough, then this isn't just my story. This is yours too. Welcome to the circle. Please share this video with anyone who needs to hear it. And remember, not everyone who becomes a parent deserves to have a child.